report that when he's governor of Riyadh, that's a fueling place for Al-Qaeda on its way to Pakistan. Yes, I mean, that is part of what the Saudi role has been, and I've already said it's in cooperation with us. Of course it is. Of course it is. When I say us, I'm talking about a shadow government, the phrase that was coined during Iran-Contra, the deep state, which is Peter Dale Scott's terminology, but it's what keeps this military-industrial intelligence policy on the rails.
I understand Israel. I understand Cheney. I understand neocons. I understand the objective. I understand all that. But I understand what Saudi Arabia has so much to gain. I mean, they have so much.
Well, okay. I've got the book on my shelf. I haven't read through it. I meant to before this. It's Craig Unger's House of Saud, House of Bush. So this is what I really think is a good way of approaching this at first. Listen close. The Saudi Arabian government is overtly controlled by criminals. It's overt, okay? I mean, people are beheaded, it's happening all the time, for questioning the king. This country is run by a family, and it treats it as existing for the sole purpose of enriching them. And when I talk about the worst of the worst, I mean, King Salman just came to Washington, D.C. last week. We should have a moment of silence to all ponder what the hell our president is doing rolling out a red carpet. I mean, and look, it's not like he's never heard of the 28 pages. It's not like he doesn't know damn well. I'm telling you, Salman's name is in the 28 pages, whether it is or it isn't. That's the House of Saud at work. And I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. You saw the joke. Oh, we're advertising for 8 more executioners because we can't keep up with the beheadings. No, come on now. That was just, and dissent? No. This country exists at the pleasure of these criminals. They are criminals. Okay. They have teamed up over many decades with a crime family in the United States by the name of Bush. And that's just the kernel of how does the crime family of Bush thrive in our system? How does it happen? It happens because the system is geared towards that. Because the system welcomes it, because the system benefits from it. We're doing the same simple thing day in and day out. There's no awareness. There's no action. Okay? We are killing and destroying and poisoning for the sake of individual, short-term profit and power. That's what explains what we see across the board.
But this doesn't explain why Saudi Arabia. Is it just Iran?
No, so they have a deal. So House of Saud gets together with House of Bush. This is what one of the things I'm trying to explain. Thank you for asking me. One of the things I'm trying to explain is the Saudis, the House of Saud, does not naturally remain in power. I mean, come on now, you're a Saudi. I mean, you know what the heck is going on. So the Saudis need protection. There's a part right here in this book. Bandar was the middle one. They sold the Saudis, at the same time as they're selling weapons to the Israelis. They sold the Saudis, this is back when I think H.W. Bush was around. Now listen to this now. They sold the Saudis 6 AWACS. $85 billion. You know what they cost? Maybe about 1/80 of that. There's a lot of middlemen.
Yeah.
A lot of middlemen. Yeah.
And so AWACS are?
AWACS are surveillance, very, very high technology surveillance jets. 6 AWACS to Saudi Arabia for $85 billion, Bandar in the middle. The Saudi Arabia, by the way, I mean, so what's going on there? The Saudi Arabians are sort of moving the oil to the United States through the American companies, profits out the Kissin, and we're selling them weapons. It's extremely profitable. Saudi Arabia, I just saw it the other day, and in case anybody's paying attention to the ratings, has the third largest military in the world. How many people are they? Come on. You don't know. No, that's not a country. That's a criminal organization that wants the biggest gun on the block. And the neocons of this country are working with them. However they can figure out how to do it. And I mean sloppy at that.
How does Trump fit into all this?
Well, okay.
Oh, sorry.
I believe this is the appropriate answer. Okay? I don't care who you sit in that house. Okay? The intelligence and the military people walk up the first day. They say, this is what has to be done. And you don't know otherwise. Of course. Listen, I'm telling you, I'm not the only one that noticed it. Or maybe I was. The headline on January 21st, 2009, headline Washington Post. Obama is signing orders for more intensive drone strikes in Pakistan. I'm glad you were ready to do that. And look, folks. I mean, there's fear involved here too. I mean, you know, these Congress people. Listen, I could be wrong, but I'll tell you what. This is our shot. This is our shot. You see, we don't have the makings of a revolution in this country. If we're not represented somewhere or other within this system, forget about it. We're not mounting any kind of challenge. Do you agree, Andrew?
That's the reality of things.
I'm afraid so. I'm afraid that's the reality, and that's what this is. And yes, they'll slink back to limiting the impact of this, although I don't see how. They are talking treason. All you got to do is put the two concepts together. They are describing treason, and they know it.
Are they getting death threats or anything like that?
No, they're not. Bob Graham is an extremely respected. I mean, he's extremely respected. He's a two-time Florida governor, three-time Florida senator. He was chairperson of the Senate Intelligence Committee. You know, he started off relatively deluded. He's not deluded anymore. I don't think, Andrew. I don't think he could be, but please.
I'll just add two things. One is his book, Keys to the Kingdom, where I first met him here at the Press Club. It's a novel about a courageous Florida senator who's got a big secret about Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
Who's murdered in the first chapter by a truck. And a young person who he gave hints to then tries to tell the story of the Saudis. So he's thinking about getting killed.
Wow.
Now the second thing, very briefly, is I set up a meeting with him at Cozy across the street from the White House. It took a couple months to set it up. He's based down in Florida. And at the end of the meeting, he said, and we were talking about this kind of thing, he says, isn't it crazy that we've got a meeting like this? And the last little factoid that brings that in is this is the former head of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Yeah. And how many people here know who his brother was?
Phil Graham. Washington Post.
The publisher of the Washington Post. So he's meeting with a freelancer to try to get this story out. Wow. And they need our help. And by the way, the last time I saw him, Barry referred to the conference. Barry asked a good question. By the way, Bloomberg, if you saw a lot of people back there, Bloomberg had a party over there. We've got.
Is that so? Because I invited the guy that wrote that column to come here.
Well, they were over at a party at the other end.
You think I could find him over there? The Bloomberg guy?
The Weigel, he's an idiot.
Weigel, yeah, Weigel.
Well,
okay.
I mean,
Weagel's the
Weigel guy covers Rand Paul, a presidential candidate, plus Walter Jones, Bob Graham, all talking about the 28 pages. And do you know what his coverage was? Is making fun of the people in the audience, the conspiracy theorists asking questions.
Oh.
So that's Bloomberg. And by the way, Bloomberg is head of this press club right now. They were all over there. So maybe Weagle the Weasel is over there. But the last thing is, again, think of it. Bob Graham's half-brother was the longtime publisher of the Washington Post, and he's trying to get publicity. And by the way, he said he would like to come here and talk to this group. He'd like to have a news peg. And he told that, I think, to Barry. And that's why Barry's, you can.
Well, yes, I mean, I invited Graham, and I will report that both he and Walter Jones want to do what they can do. I mean, and they've done a bunch. And Walter Jones' office said to me, look, we want to come out, but we've already come out and there wasn't very much attention paid. So we need another angle. And another angle, well, I'm thinking about another angle. But the one that, of course, occurs to you right away is we just have to build up support for this. And we are, I think this is gaining some momentum. I mean, let's see, USA Today did something quite dramatic on it in July. I mean, USA Today said, it appears that exposure of this 28 pages is going to completely undo our perception of the war on terror. I mean, it's right there in USA Today. CNN also is giving its service. Bob's
60 Minutes, so we good.
no, wait a second. But I don't think we've been on 60 Minutes.
No,
Somebody
so
said they were
we
going
could
to.
get on 60
Well,
Minutes.
60 Minutes is
Well,
good luck.
What
Good
about
luck.
the Fox News interview with Napolitano and Shepard Smith?
That one I didn't get to see. I meant to see that one. Go
Very,
ahead.
very interesting.
So go ahead. What did you get out of that?
Napolitano is quite the man, I got to tell you. And he lays it out pretty well. He goes into Bandar Bush. He really goes into it. And Shepard Smith basically just sits back in his seat after pretty much demoralizing the 9/11 truther, and then comes out and says, "Oh boy, all these conspiracy theorists are going to go crazy now." And at the very end of it, Napolitano doesn't get too aggressive, but he kind of makes a statement that this needs to be looked into and this is very legitimate. And Shepard Smith kind of cuts him off at the end, but it's definitely worth the watch. You can just Google Fox News Napolitano 9/11. You can watch the whole thing. It's really intriguing.
Yeah, good for Napolitano. Should we since it's only 8:05 and we don't have to stay here, any longer than anybody wants to, but should we just do a quick thing on this conspiracy business? I mean, yes. I mean, it's amazing what kind of sway it has. It's amazing, how apparently effective it is. How apparently effective it is, and it is. I mean, it's Orwellian. I mean, it's totally Orwellian. I mean, let's just do this for a moment, okay? Just so everybody knows, when you hear that word, you got to jump on it. Okay, look, most criminal activity is a conspiracy. I said it again. Most criminal activity is a conspiracy. All it means is that there's a nefarious thing happening that involves more than one person, or cooperation between. I mean, that's all it means. That's all it is. Now look, we have the memo, folks. We have the memo. It's a 1966 memo, okay, in which the CIA decides it's going to disseminate this meme of, conspiracy theory precisely as a way to diffuse the growing awareness that JFK was assassinated by a conspiracy involving the CIA. Yes, that's the genesis of this absurd term that terribly intimidates people and is supposed to end debates. I mean, come on, look. I mean, as if.
May I offer another angle before I leave here?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll start by saying everything you have said, I think, is right on the mark, given what I've read. One thing I'm going to look for when I go home is actually a Vanity Fair article that came out on this very topic. Okay, you're familiar with this. That said, yeah, you are going to find plenty of groups and people and stuff that will back this because they hate Saudi Arabia, they distrust Saudi Arabia, they know Saudi Arabia are criminals. However, there are other people who may just want to, on the principle of it, it's been 14 years. What's the justification for keeping this secret? Because there's no national security information. They have said there's no national security information in this to justify keeping
there
it
never
secret.
was.
Right. So here's my angle. Just put it out there. Perhaps we should look at, and it reflects the bill and the press conference that I saw. take out Saudi Arabia, take out Pakistan, take out all those countries, and say, just for a moment, that's irrelevant. What's relevant is that we get the truth out about something that was investigated. That something led to the death of how many thousands of American people. That should be enough right there. Plus, here's the crux. Here's the point. You avoid the conspiracy charges because you're not saying you're biased. That bias. Again, I'm just saying what they would say. I have a pretty good idea, and I think you've done a very convincing job. But like I mentioned, like before, the National Security Archive, I really do want to write a letter to them.
That's fine.
But I would leave out Saudi Arabia only so much as if senators or congressmen have said that as a quote. Otherwise, I would downplay it. That's my angle.
Mike,
suggested.
Senator Graham has referred to Saudi Arabia as a co-conspirator in 9/11.
I know.
Okay.
That ship has sailed. Look, let's go back a little bit. There are basically three ways that you can get the 28 days. I don't know of any other beyond the three. One, presidential directive. Obama can do it anytime he wants to. There's a presidential order out there, they're released. Two, you were able to get a committee in Congress to do a hearing, right? And they started bringing everybody in. That generates press and what have you, and could lead to a decision. And three, the idea of media awareness is helpful, but ultimately what it takes is the right journalist with the right amount of power decides to take it on. They go after it, and they make it put a bone between their teeth. Finding that right journalist is not easy. Believe me, that's what I do, is trying to find the right journalist to do stuff like that. I have a media consultant, and she costs money, so if you have money, that's a problem. But those are the only three ways.
Hey, listen, if that third way you just described,
Yeah.
if you can pursue it, please do. I think it's very important. It's very important. Okay, and if you need, and there's a lot of information that's very available. You've got hr14.org. If anybody wants to read more about that, you've got 28pages.org. I'm happy to talk to you anytime about this. If you can develop somebody who's prepared to tell the simplest thing about this. There has already been, and you've read it yourself, I can detect, there's already been a surprising amount of focus on this, and all of it raises the question, why not? All of it. And it's gathering some momentum. So if you want to include some more dots between the lines, by all means.
There's also on those two pages, 28pages.org and hr14.org, there are ready-to-go letters that you can fill out. Simple information to send right to the president, to your senators, to your local congressman. Makes it really easy to do. The other thing is Rand Paul in June also introduced 1471, the Victim's Right to Know. Yeah. And that's a bill that not urges like HR 14, but it requires the president to release those pages. And they both work parallel, both of those bills. So it's just another attempt, and by a presidential candidate at that, to put this back into the news. And I think that's a huge boost.
Well, I think a bill can take forever. A hearing should be called in a week by any chair of any committee.
Well, you did leave out a couple of things. For one thing, and in fact, I asked Rand Paul about this on June 2nd. I said, isn't it your constitutional right to just read these pages into the record? Under the Constitution,
absolutely. Any one of them could do that.
Well, exactly right.
That's called the Mike Gravel maneuver.
Well, exactly right. That's what Mike Gravel did with
They don't have it. You have to understand, we have the most gutless team of politicians I've ever seen.
Well, sir, it's all relative, okay? I submit again, I hope people take this impression away. The folks that are now sponsoring this, it's right now a total of, I'll give you the exact number, 22.
Members of Congress?
What? Members of Congress. 3 in the Senate, 19 in the House. Republican and Democrat alike, it's very important when you're talking about this, trying to organize this. This is bipartisan, and no wonder. We're talking about a sickness that has nothing to do with who's in power, ostensibly.
They submitted a bill under co-sponsorship?
What?
We've got proposed a bill under co-sponsorship. Maybe I'm behind the curve here.
No, you're not. The fellow just laid it out. Well, HR 14 is a Walter Jones bill. There were 18 co-signers. Okay. S 1471 Rand Paul bill. There were 2 co-signers.
Okay. Okay. I'm a little behind the curve. Are they? Where are they? Where's the status of the bills? Are they in committee? Where are they?
Well,
you know.
I believe Rand Paul's is, the Senate and the, HR 14 is still in the House. They have, the HR 14 has the most co-sponsors. I don't know what Rand Paul's doing since June 2nd with the bill. I haven't really seen much
I've spoken
on that.
recently to
That's impressive.
I've spoken recently to Walter Jones' office, and no, I mean right now they are, as it were, pending. Okay, and what we
Both
and what we
of
need,
them are pending.
yeah, and what we need to do, for as long as we can keep them pending, is to get 50 people in each congressional district to say one thing, folks. Let's get it very, very clear here, please. Don't. We're not asking you to co-sponsor HR 14. Go down to the basement. Read the 28 pages. You might as well throw in that it was a Republican named Tom Massey who said, "This completely reorders my conception of history. This has information in it that is our best information for avoiding another 9/11. Say it to yourself and then say it to them. Go down there, read it, and then proceed accordingly."
There's some truth in that, because a lot of the people that